I would try one thing, Craig. MPG, what were you getting? I was getting 18, but I'm in the city. So what were you getting?
Look, I think Mazda expects us to get a 28 mile per gallon, maybe less, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I'm getting at highway speeds easily 30 miles a gallon.
That's impressive.
That's very impressive.
That's a big deal. Welcome to Texas Truck Channel again. This is our 5th take. I'm Brian.
CX-90.
Yeah, this is Craig. That's a CX-90. It's a Turbo S. Okay, look, if you followed the show before, you know we've already been to Los Angeles for the unveiling. We've interviewed chief designers and engineers. We've been to San Fran for the first drive. We drove both the PHEV and the Turbo S. PHEV is awesome. Can't believe how good that is. And the Turbo S we had some problems with in San Fran, driving back through Sonoma. And I'm here to tell you, we're doing that same thing in Texas, unfortunately. We've had the same mechanical situation here, but we're gonna cover that in depth in the driving portion, so don't get hung up there. There's a lot to talk about.
Golly, what is going on? There it is again. Ah,
yeah, right.
There it is.
There, it's shaking. There it is,
there
shaking.
It is again.
And now,
it's not smooth.
Oh, hang on, listen.
Yeah, it's right there. Whoa.
Wait, do you hear the whining?
Yeah.
Though? That's not engine, that's like the EV motor making noise.
Yeah.
And if we get out and park it, it'll smell like electrical burning.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
Something's up with that.
Yeah. The Turbo S gives you 40 horsepower, which is more than the non-Turbo S, and we're gonna get into that when we get to the hood portion. But first of all, look at this artisan red. Come on, look at this. I mean, it's really burgundy, but Mazda's paint quality is always amazing, and that is ringing true here. Also, another staple of Mazda, incredible headlights. They follow and trace at night, really, really good. Also, corporate nose. We've seen this on a lot of stuff, but it's a little bit longer. And then also you've got the bigger, more prominent Mazda badge. This, which we've had a lot of heated debate off camera, is to a lot of people a value brand. That is not the case anymore. Mazda's working really hard to bring that up market, and that's part of their challenge. Craig, you had someone in the car. Well, we'll get to that in the drive portion, but some people didn't think this was a Mazda because they didn't know enough, and they were really impressed and thought it was something more European. So that's the good news. Let's come around to the side, Craig. These are the 21-inch wheels. These are Falcons, and they are freaking massive. They're 275s, and look, it should ride way worse than it does. It rides really good, and this is not air ride. This is not a digital shock. This is not a multi-valve situation or a Bilstein. This is just a well-tuned damper, and it gets it done. It rides well. It's not too choppy, and it handles great. Looking right here, we've got our air curtain coming in the side, which a lot of cars do these days. So does Mazda. And the brakes are big, but they're not Brembos. They're not incredible for that, but they get the job done. We haven't had them fade once, so that's a good thing. Coming around to the side of them, Craig, you gotta let people know what you're driving, and that's what this is right here, Inline 6. You can't just like have that kind of tech and not brag on it. That's what that is. I kind of like that too. Back in the old Dodge days, Craig, remember you would always have like V8 or Magnum or V6. You knew what you had by the emblem. Proportions are solid on this. If you look at how long this nose is, how far back the A-pillar is, it screams to a car person, I'm rear-wheel drive. Even though it's not, because all Mazda SUVs are all-wheel drive, the intent is that it's rear-wheel drive first. And in fact, the torque split is 90-10 at default. That tells you how rear-wheel drive biased this thing is. Most importantly, Craig, fuel check. Ooh, it opens. That's a big door. Oh, it's got a Mazda cap. That's okay. You know, I wish it was capless, but you know what? It has a place for it to go. So it's a little bit organized, and it is super recommended, as you like to say.
Right.
All right, come around the back. Nice, sleek spoiler, nothing too bold. And then this tail light has got like a little bit of just a clean design. It feels like it's pulled out of typical Mazda language. And then down below, Craig, this right here is not a fake exhaust tip. They don't even lie to you about it. They're just down below, and I really appreciate that. Now you can get a towing package. This one does not have it, and it tows up to 5,000 pounds, and that rear-wheel drive bias will help with that. I think it's time we check out the engine. 3, 2, 1, check that out. Look at all that plastic real estate. That's not what matters though. This has a really cool engine cover. Come show the guys real quick. You've got these turnbuckles right here, and you lift it up. Instead of us throwing it in the trash like we usually do, we've got this nice little clip. It flips up. It's like really thoughtful, and all that heat can now escape. And if you look right here, that's an inline 6. That's a giant turbo, and somewhere in the back is a mild 48 volt mild hybrid system. And more importantly, Craig, the center axle is about here, and the crank pulley is about there. So this is what you would call a mid-front engine configuration. A little secret on the PHEV, the crank pulley is further back. It's actually straight up mid-engine. Believe it or not, that's what it is. So air intake comes in from the front grille, tapers down to the airbox. right up here all the way around. There's no intercooler back there. Into the turbo on this side. It's really kind of snakes itself around down there and then into the turbo inlet. Look, this is our point of contention. Inline 6s are inherently balanced. This one has not proven to be so in our experience. So before we get too down on that, let's hop in the interior and talk about all the greatness there.
All right, Brian, time for the interior of the 2024 Mazda CX-90. And this is the nice trim, the Premium Plus, correct?
Yes.
Premium Plus.
Yes.
Plenty of room
top
for
trim.
Plenty of room for our gear back here. We've got outlets to plug things in. Now that's only 150 watts. On the PHEV, you can get 1,500 watts.
That's
on that.
serious.
So pretty cool there. Also your old school cigarette lighter charger. So, you know, in case you need to smoke. And then under here you get, well, really no storage except for a jacks for, in case you have a,
right.
So
right.
Not a lot of help there.
Yeah.
But Brian, look, headrest is up. You want to fold it down, you just pull this button and you push. We're done.
Hey, is that ever going to break?
That's not going to break.
Never.
Bring it back up. You literally just pull it right back up and you're done.
And then flip your headrest and that's it. And that's pretty good room, by the way.
That's how it's supposed to work.
Look at that. That's good space.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the business class. All right, moving on to the second row. We get some nice seats in the second row. Sometimes car manufacturers like to cheap out in the second row. Not here. Not happening.
Nothing but napping
And
back here.
you get a little bit of the, what do they call that, stadium seating. But Brian, I'm here to tell you there's not a lot of room back here. It's a little snug. Not the snuggest. It could be, look, a full-size adult will fit back here, even with the panoramic roof. There's some headroom. You do get cubby bins, pretty deep one that put Cheerios in, and you get more Cheerio storage down here to collect the ones that fall from there. Tri-zone climate control, you can do, here's the most important thing back here, Brian. You see this button? That means I can chill the important regions of my body
And
in the summer, and USB-C. No A, they're moving on up, so that's that.
That's all that matters.
But I will say this, I did have an adult back here. We were driving around and he said it was a little snug, had to move that seat forward. Said there could have been more room, but he was comfortable.
I can say I've had kids back here. Here's the car seat, and that's behind myself driving, and it was fine for that. So if you've got little kids, not gonna be a problem.
Moving on to the front. I'm gonna start it up and I'm gonna go ahead and get my nether regions chilled up a little bit. So they're chilled up. I got the AC on. I'm not going to turn it on too much because I want it to be not too loud. But Brian, it works up here. Here's the best part about it. It is premium up here. It is a very Mazda take on luxury, and you still get buttons. You still get all the good textures and feels, sight lines. You get the Mazda control. Controversial. I can't touch it in Mazda mode, but Brian, see that? I toggle to the right. And I go to Apple CarPlay mode, and now I can actually touch these buttons. So in CarPlay, it works. Mazda, it doesn't. So there's that.
So the in-house is not touchscreen. You have to use a scroll wheel.
Correct.
Which is fine, but for a lot of buyers, it's kind of dumb.
But also, most buyers put the CarPlay on, and it just works. I don't know. I don't know how much it matters.
Yeah.
So there is that. But Brian, here, notice this. I want you to see this.
Yeah.
So it is rear-wheel drive biased. We're going to have a transmission tunnel and a driveline tunnel. We know that. Mazda did two things. They pushed the engine and transmission as far back as they could for dynamics, and then they developed their transmission in-house to make it as narrow and as long as they could to make this not too intrusive.
Is that why it doesn't have a ZF8 speed?
Maybe, but I'm also here to tell you, it feels like there could be a little more room here, and this is the wide version, North American CX-90. In Europe, you get the CX-80. It's a little narrower. I'm curious how tight that is. Just something to look out for. It's not necessarily an issue, but interesting that it's not wider here.
Question. Is it tighter or wider than the CX-9? Because they're the same problem.
It feels a little bit wider than the CX-9s. You do get a little bit more space in the previous generation. They did comp themselves and they did beat themselves. I'll give them credit on that.
Okay. You want to show them the cluster?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's show the people this. So see the cluster, it works, it's simple. When you put cruise control on, it does change. It'll toggle kind of back and forth. So now you see all your lane departure and radar cruise control. Turn cruise control back off, it goes to that. Put it in sport mode, it does change. It goes to more of a red and aggressive looking, kind of mean. Ooh, look at that. And then we get to off-road and we get completely different dials, and it looks a little different because they're trying to show you different things. So with that, Brian, it's getting a little hot in here. The ball chillers are working, but not as great as they, well, I'm not driving, so there's that. Let's get on the road and drive it so we can put the AC on.
Deal.
We're in the 2024 Mazda CX-90 Preferred Plus, Turbo S.
Premium Plus, Turbo S.
Premium, yeah, whatever.
Right, sport mode,
yeah, whatever.
traction off, load it. Let's go. There it is.
Boom.
Hear the turbo on the top end. And it's kind of lumpy. Okay.
7.13, 0 to 60.
You know, I ran it empty, meaning you're not in the car. I ran it about 6 times off camera, and 7.1 was the best we could pull off.
Okay.
We drove this car at the launch in California.
Yep.
And it cracked the 6-second mark. It was like 5.9 and change, which happened to be right there with the PHEV.
Yes.
For reference. So before we get into ride and drive, which is brilliant, we've got to air some grievances.
Yes.
I'll lead in on this.
Okay.
We have now driven 3 of these.
Yes.
One at the launch of the Turbo S. The PHEV was problem-free. We drove the Turbo S, and we determined it was broken.
In fact, the Mazda engineer confirmed that.
Correct. We were stopped on the route, and a follow car came up and said, "Hey, you guys doing okay?" And we said, "We think it's broken." He drove it, came back, and goes, "Yeah, that's messed up."
Okay.
Okay, so confirmed. We got a bad apple.
Yep.
Pre-production, we get it.
And what's broken? It's making this weird noise under load.
Yeah, under load. So what happens is when you're on throttle, we get a harmonic vibration in the floorboard, which is coming from the transmission area, we think. And then it feels like it's not free revving. It feels like there's a parastatic drag on the rotating assembly, whether it's the mild hybrid assist system or whether it's something in the accessory driveline. I don't know.
It's like a weird humming noise, that vibration that shouldn't be there.
Shouldn't be there. And then when you lay into it, it's not doing it now, but it did it earlier, just a minute ago. It sounds like a supercharger whine, but not in a good way, like it's broken.
It's not supposed to sound like that.
Right. So fast forward, we get this one back in Texas. We're back home. Mazda said, "We're so sorry that one broke. We're going to send you one right away." They sent it to us. This is doing the same thing.
Same thing. Not as bad though.
Not as bad though. Yeah. It's not, the one in California was like, "Oh, there's something definitely wrong." And this one, if you just put around town, you don't know.
Yeah.
You lay into it and you're sorely disappointed. So in our proper investigation, Craig, I said, "You know what? I'm going to go to the dealership. There's one in Fort Worth. There's a Turbo S in the lot. Shout out to Highly Mazda. They were great to work with me. They said, "Hey, we understand. We want to give this thing a fair shake. Please go drive this. Let me know if it does it." I drove for about 10 minutes. It was okay. Still didn't seem that smooth, but it didn't seem like it was broken. And then, of course, I floored again one last time, and it does the exact same thing this does.
Yeah.
And it vibrates and it shakes and all this kind of stuff. It's just, something's not right with these.
Right.
So all that out of the way, I do want to say that this is a first-year production.
Yes.
And I do think this is related to the single clutch, not a torque converter / e-hybrid assist thing going on with this 8-speed. Something is not right there. It's very frustrating. That or this engine's just not that smooth.
Yeah, it's very concerning because it's an inline 6. It should be really smooth.
Yeah, we've driven a lot of inline 6s. They're all smooth.
It's also a Mazda. It should be very dialed because they're very dialed on all their stuff.
Yeah, and by the way, we've driven Mazdas for years, so this is not what they do.
We're definitely going to chalk it up to first-year generation. We in all our reviews, we always warn buyers, hey, first year of anything new, there's issues. Stuff just happens. It's part of building cars, okay?
Will they get it sorted? Yes, I think they will.
Absolutely. Look, here, I can't immediately think of, there's the Ford and GM 10-speed that was in a lot of vehicles and still is in a lot of vehicles.
Oh yeah.
Its first couple years it worked. This works too.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the smoothest. It had some hiccups, some issues, and that Ford 10-speed though, it gets dialed over years. They corrected it, and it's better and better each year.
It's sorted now.
The same thing's going to happen with this.
Yeah, for sure.
The nuance down low. Okay, yes. What he's talking about is, and we've seen more people recognize this. We're having trouble finding other people recognize the other issue, but this
the harmonic balance problem.
Yeah. The next issue is at low speeds, kind of like the Ford F-150 Power Boost has a very similar setup where the hybrid motor is in between the transmission and the motor. It's just clunky at low speeds. Like if you're in a parking lot and you're crawling and then you come to a stop and then you accelerate a little bit, there's not a smooth transition or handoff from the hybrid to the motor part. It's there supposed to assist with tip in and all that stuff.
Right. And we've covered this in depth. Yeah. We have a podcast with Dave Coleman where it explains where the mild hybrid will help with rev match at low speeds. And I think that's what's hiccuping, like it's a calibration issue.
It's just something off.
Something's off. Now in the PHEV, which has the same transmission and clutch instead of torque converter that this does, never witnessed that problem at all.
But now, in its defense, it does have a 400 volt battery versus a motor versus a 48 volt motor to assist. And so you get a little bit different volumes, a little more help there. So maybe that's why there's less of an issue. I don't know.
And we've looked into this. This motor can only assist up to 1450 RPM. So when you're like rolling up to the stop, it can blip.
Yeah, it provides 113 pound-feet of torque. It's pretty good.
More on that in our technical review. That's coming up later. But moral of the story is, it's not perfect. But let's talk about handling, because that is damn near perfect.
Grievance is out of the way.
Grievance is out of the way. Let's get out. And I feel bad even doing it, but we would be remiss if we didn't just tell it like it is. That's what we do here. We review these, and that's what's happening here, unfortunately. So, handling. Coleman also went on about how this was meant to be a Mazda 6. Unofficially. And, well, that segment died, Craig. So they had to make a crossover. And guess what? They made the best effing handling crossover that I've driven in years.
Look,
double wishbone on the front, multi-link in the rear, KPC, all these different systems to help it turn in, and it's just very natural. And the steering is communicative, and it's balanced, and it on center, I think, is magic. It loads up right, and it weights up right as you're going through corners. We just did some twisties with another crossover, and it was apparent how much better this is handling.
It handles great, and that part of the Mazda is dialed in wonderful. And yes, obviously we'll have a technical review. We'll get more into this, or listen to that podcast. But yeah, it's got a lot of Miata MX-5 things going on in this.
There's a theme
because it's rear-wheel drive bias. They took a lot of the same stuff, and it pays off in spades. And you don't even have to think about it. Like, it's not intrusive. It's just natural. And it just works.
Well, and that's what Coleman drove home, is that all these systems that are working, they don't want the driver to know they're even there, and they don't want to make it to feel unnatural. They just want to assist with linearity. And that is apparent. And there's no glaring flaws with it. The biggest issue for me as a driver is Mazda's going, hey, this is a driver's crossover, all these, and look, as gearheads, we have kids, we want to drive things that are fun. This is perfect. And then you go to drive it, and the powertrain's so frustrating to work with, it kind of ruins the experience.
Last thing, I think we can end with this. It's quiet and comfortable and luxurious in here. This is Mazda's take on luxury, and I like it. I can't wait to see what more they do with their take on luxury. I had someone get in here, and I covered the badge so they couldn't tell what it was, and I had them guess what it is.
What'd they say?
Their first guess was Audi, and their next guess was BMW.
And that's exactly it. This is a bargain X5. This is not an expensive CX-9. It's the other way around.
Exactly.
And I think there's some magic there, and I hope they sell every one they make of these. Mazda, you're on the right track. I love where you're going. Keep it up. We're huge fans. Let's see what happens.
All right. Check us out on the socials.
Thanks for watching.